The Bajoran aliens would soon discover that kidnapping ex-Marine Timothy Scott was the single worst decision of their wretched alien lives. Timothy was jolted awake by a blinding light flooding his secluded Rocky Mountains cabin. He rolled out of bed, grabbed his pistol, and crept to the window. But instead of cops or a bear, a shimmering silver saucer craft hovered outside, pulsing with purple lights. "I'll count to 10, then start shooting if you shitheads don't come out." He barely reached 3 when a crackling blue beam shot from the craft, striking his chest. Paralyzed, he blacked out as hazy grey figures emerged from the ship. Hours later, he woke naked and strapped to a metal table, wires snaking from him to whirring machines. A grey alien with a bulbous head and black eyes loomed over him. "I am Quasar of the Bajoran Empire. You belong to me now, human," it said in perfect English. Enraged, Timothy struggled and swore bloody vengeance. But he didn't know these sadistic aliens had abducted him as a sick game to hunt the most dangerous game, man, and that he would have to fight through an army of the bastards to get home, or die trying as their plaything. Eyes darting around the sterile room, Timothy took in the 2 other Bajoran aliens. They scurried about, tapping controls and examining screens covered in incomprehensible alien script. One, shorter than Quasar, with a jagged scar slashing through its right eye socket, approached the restrained human. It held a gleaming implement reminiscent of a surgical scalpel. Timothy's muscles clenched. He fully expected to be sliced open and dissected like a frog in biology class. But the alien simply snipped off a few strands of his dark hair, then scraped the keen edge along Timothy's forearm, collecting flakes of skin. It deposited the samples into a clear cylindrical vial. "What the fuck is this? What are you bug-eyed freaks doing to me?" Timothy snarled, straining against the unyielding metal bands. Quasar's lipless mouth curved into a smirk, the expression jarring on its inhuman face. "You should feel privileged, human. Out of countless trillions, you've been selected as the next contestant on the galaxy's highest-rated show, Abductor Primitive. And as a human, you're sure to be a fan favorite," it continued. "Your kind's savage nature is legendary. The whole galaxy is eager to see how you perform." Timothy gaped at Quasar, stunned. "Wait, you're saying the rest of the universe knows about humans, knows we exist?" "Oh yes, you've quite the fierce reputation out there among the stars. We Bajora have been observing your planet for generations. Of course, we'd never risk an outright confrontation with such a barbaric race, but we have no qualms about borrowing a single human, for science and entertainment." A section of the white wall slid open with a hiss, revealing a yawning cavern swathed in shadows. Quasar tapped a control, and the metal bands retracted into the table with a snap. It jabbed a glowing rod, crackling with energy, into Timothy's ribs, sending a jolt through him. Legs wobbling from hours of immobility, Timothy stumbled through the portal. It clanged shut behind him with a ring of finality. Blinking in the dim light, heart pounding, he peered into the gloom of the huge chamber, skittering claws on metal, throaty snarls, wet clicking noises. The sounds of nightmares surrounded him. The shadows in the huge chamber seemed to move with a life of their own. Timothy squinted into the darkness, crouched and ready to move. Suddenly, Quasar's voice blared through hidden speakers, making Timothy jump. "Welcome, gentle beings, to the first challenge. Our human contestant must make his way across the arena and claim the golden key, all while evading our ravenous Cathcar beasts. Place your bets now." Guttural snarls erupted from the gloom, and Timothy tensed as 6 hulking shapes prowled into view. Each Cathcar was the size of a bear, covered in mottled grey scales and rippling with sinewy muscle. Drool dripped from their fanged jaws, and their sickle-shaped claws gouged the metal floor. Their reptilian eyes locked onto Timothy with feral hunger. "Shit," Timothy hissed. Unarmed and disoriented, he knew his odds of surviving this were slim, but like hell was he going to make it easy for these alien freaks. He spotted the golden glint of a large key across the arena, at least a football field's length away. The Cathcar charged, closing the distance terrifyingly fast. Timothy bolted, zagging and rolling to avoid their lunges. Hot, fetid breath washed over him as their jaws snapped inches from his skin. He felt a claw slash across his naked back, drawing a ribbon of blood. Timothy clenched his jaw against the sting. His foot struck something hard and he snatched it up, a rock the size of his fist. Timothy whirled to face the nearest beast. As it pounced, he smashed the stone into its eye socket with every ounce of force he could muster. The Cathcar shrieked, reeling away. Panting, Timothy sprinted on. The pack closed in, heartbeats from bringing him down. With a desperate leap, Timothy flung himself at the key, fingers closing around it. He jammed it into a lock on the wall, bracing for the feel of fangs. Instead, a glowing force field sprang up, cutting him off from the Cathcar. They skidded to a stop, hissing and spitting. Timothy sagged against the wall, gasping for breath, the arena spinning around him. He raised his head and caught sight of a camera lens peering down at him. Summoning his last shred of defiance, Timothy lifted his fist, still clutching the gore-smeared key, and glared into the camera. The unseen crowd went berserk, howling and cheering and chanting in dozens of alien tongues. In the upper levels of the Colosseum, a hooded figure sat very still amidst the seething audience, studying Timothy on the monitors below. Then the mysterious stranger rose and vaulted a railing, vanishing into the shadows of a maintenance shaft. In a deserted corridor, the figure pushed back her hood to reveal an aging human woman, with a hard-lined face and a shaved head latticed with old scars. She tapped a device on her wrist, her voice low and urgent. "Control, this is Agent Athena. We have a situation. The Bajorans have captured one of our operatives." Grimacing against the searing pain of his wounds, Timothy lay strapped to the examination table, as the Bajoran scientists huddled around him, daubing his flayed skin with a stinging liquid. The acrid stench of disinfectant burned his nostrils. He ground his teeth, refusing to make a sound and give his tormentors the satisfaction. As the grey aliens worked, Timothy's eyes darted around the sterile white lab, seeking anything that could aid his escape. A flicker of movement near the door caught his eye. At first he thought it was just his vision blurring from blood loss and exhaustion, but as he squinted, the shimmering patch of air seemed to bend the light around it like a desert mirage. Suddenly, the distortion rippled and solidified into the shape of a human woman. She wore a skin-tight black combat suit that seemed to drink in the light. Her face was hidden behind a featureless dark helmet. In a blur of fluid motion, the woman drew a sleek pistol from her hip and leveled it at the Bajorans. 3 pulses of searing blue-white plasma lanced out, each bolt striking an alien square in the chest. The Bajorans crumpled to the floor, the stink of charred flesh joining the medical odors permeating the lab. The woman rushed to Timothy's side, working to undo his restraints. As her gloved fingers flew over the bonds, her helmet folded away, revealing her scarred, weathered face. Timothy recognized her as the mysterious figure from the arena stands. "What?" he croaked through dry, blood-caked lips. "Lieutenant Athena Singh, Earth Defense Initiative," she said, brusquely pulling him upright. "I'd say it's a pleasure, but under the circumstances—" Timothy's head spun. "Earth Defense? I don't understand. I thought I was the first—" "The first human to meet an alien?" Athena snorted. "Hardly. The world's governments have known about the galactic community for decades, ever since a Bajoran scout ship crashed in the Siberian tundra back in 47. Why do you think the Cold War space race was so urgent?" As she talked, Athena moved around the lab, quickly and methodically rifling through drawers and cabinets. She continued, "The EDI was founded in secret to protect Earth from extraterrestrial threats. We couldn't very well tell the public. Can you imagine the panic?" Timothy's mind reeled as he struggled to take in her words. Athena pressed a bundle of fabric into his hands, a black jumpsuit like her own. "Put this on. I won't have you running around half-naked. Difficult enough to stay hidden as it is." As Timothy dressed with fumbling fingers, Athena kept explaining, "I've been undercover out here for years, sabotaging Bajoran efforts to infiltrate and subvert Earth. I was just about to head home when I got word of your abduction." Timothy glanced up sharply. You're here to rescue me then. Let's get the hell out of here. Athena shook her head grimly. Not that simple, I'm afraid. If you just disappear, it'll raise too many questions about humans' capabilities. I can't risk blowing my cover. We'll have to play along with their game for now. She pressed a tiny, pill-like object into his palm. Emergency beacon. Swallow this and it'll send a quantum-entangled signal to my ship in orbit. I'll translocate us both out, but only as a last resort. My ship's cloak won't fool their sensors forever. Timothy nodded, tucking the beacon into his cheek. Athena touched something on her wrist and her suit shimmered, fading from view until only a faint distortion marked her presence. I'll be watching, her disembodied voice whispered. Stay alive and I'll do what I can to even the odds. Give the bastards hell. No sooner had she vanished from sight than alarms shrieked through the complex. The lab door burst open and a squad of hulking armored Bajorans stormed in. They leveled crackling stun batons at Timothy, barking orders in their guttural language. He raised his hands in surrender, wincing as one wrenched his arms behind his back. The guards dragged him out into the corridor, slamming him face first into the wall. A fist crashed into his already battered ribs once, twice, 3 times. Timothy doubled over, wheezing. This wasn't just restraint, he realized. It was punishment for his imagined escape attempt. Battered and gasping, he could only hang limp as the Bajorans hauled him into a cavernous new chamber. A metal post stood in the center, festooned with chains. They shackled him in place, the rusted manacles biting into his wrists. As the guards filed out, Quasar's mocking voice boomed from unseen speakers once more. Well, 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 it seems our human can't follow simple rules. And here I thought your species prided itself on honor and integrity. But no matter. Your pathetic escape attempt has only earned you a penalty round. The chamber rumbled, and a panel in the floor slid open. A platform rose into view, bearing a hulking creature shackled and muzzled. It resembled a hairless gorilla, its leathery blue skin crisscrossed with jagged scars. Beady red eyes glowered with pure malice above a maw bristling with needle-like teeth. Gentle beings, Quasar crowed, I present to you a Zathian battle thrall, bred for the gladiator pits with an unquenchable taste for blood. How long do you think our human friend will last? Place your bets now. The Zathian's chains fell away, and it lumbered forward with a bellowing roar, its fetid breath hot on Timothy's face. He strained against his own bonds, muscles burning, heart jackhammering against his ribs. The beast's arm drew back, its claws gleaming. The Zathian's claws whistled through the air, missing Timothy's face by a hair's breadth as he jerked his head aside. Its fetid breath washed over him, the stench of rotten meat making his eyes water. Timothy wrenched at his chains with every ounce of strength, but they held fast. The creature drew back for another swipe and Timothy braced himself. But the blow never came. The Zathian froze mid-lunge, its bulging muscles quivering. Then, with a sickening crack, it collapsed to the floor in a twitching heap. A hush fell over the chamber, broken only by the crackle of the force field. In the stands, the spectators murmured in confusion. My apologies, gentle beings. Quasar's voice boomed, shot through with static. We seem to be experiencing some technical difficulties. Rest assured, our human contestant will still have the chance to die horribly for your amusement. Timothy sagged in his bonds, gasping, hardly daring to believe his reprieve. As Bajoran technicians in protective gear hurried out to remove the Zathian's body, he caught a faint shimmer in the air near the door. Athena, her invisibility flickering for just an instant. She had saved him somehow, neutralized the Zathian before it could tear him apart. The force field switched off with an electric hum, and the guards returned. They unshackled Timothy, only to immediately bind his hands behind his back. One jabbed him between the shoulder blades with a shock baton, making him stumble. They marched him down a featureless corridor and shoved him into a cramped, dimly lit cell. The door sealed shut with a pneumatic hiss, leaving him alone with only the faint hum of the energy barrier for company. Timothy slumped against the wall and slid to the floor, every muscle burning with exhaustion. His stomach cramped with hunger. The Bajorans hadn't fed him since his capture. He wondered grimly if starvation was to be part of the entertainment. But his dark thoughts were interrupted by a sudden flicker in the air before him. Athena appeared, dropping her invisibility. She knelt beside him, her face lined with concern. "You okay, kid?" She produced a canteen from a compartment on her suit and held it to his lips. Timothy drank greedily, the water soothing his parched throat. "Been better," he rasped. "That was you, wasn't it, with the Zathian?" She nodded. Focused electromagnetic pulse fried its neural implant. These shock collars they outfit their battle thralls with are nasty pieces of work, but not too hard to overload if you know the frequency. Athena helped him sit up a little straighter, her hands deft and impersonal as she checked him for serious injuries. "I can't keep interfering directly like that, though. Too much risk of the Bajorans detecting my tech. We need to get you through their challenges in a way that doesn't arouse suspicion." Timothy barked a humorless laugh. "Easier said than done. In case you hadn't noticed, these challenges seem specifically designed to be unbeatable. I get the feeling Quasar doesn't plan on letting me survive to the end of this sick game. All the more reason to outthink them." Athena's eyes glinted with fierce determination. "Quasar's arrogance is its weakness. It wants to prove Bajoran superiority, humiliate the primitive human. That's our angle." She leaned in close, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Here's the plan in the next trial." Before she could finish, a chime sounded, and the door to the cell opened. Athena flickered and vanished. A hulking guard stepped inside and hauled Timothy roughly to his feet. It was time for the next challenge. As he was dragged out into the corridor, Timothy caught a final whisper from his invisible ally. "Remember, kid, you're not just fighting for your life, you're fighting for all of humanity. Give 'em hell." The guard shoved Timothy through a shimmering portal, and he found himself standing in the center of a huge circular chamber. The walls were lined with pulsing circuitry, the air thrumming with barely restrained power. "Welcome, gentle beings, to the puzzle pit." Quasar's amplified voice dripped with sadistic glee. "Here we will truly see what the human mind is capable of and how much agony it can endure." A three-dimensional hologram materialized in the air before Timothy. A jumble of interlocking shapes and snarls of light, constantly shifting and reconfiguring itself. It hurt his eyes just to look at it. "You have 30 seconds to solve each puzzle," Quasar explained. "Input the correct solution and you'll proceed unharmed to the next. Fail, and well." As if in demonstration, arcs of electricity crackled between the conductors lining Timothy's restraints. He flinched involuntarily at the sight. "Oh, and one more twist, to keep things interesting." The alien's tone turned mocking. "For every shock you earn, a randomly selected member of our live audience will share your punishment. Perhaps that will motivate you not to disappoint." A horrified murmur rippled through the unseen crowd. Timothy felt a leaden weight settle in his stomach. Now it wasn't just his own life on the line. His failures would cause others to suffer. The cruelty of it stole his breath. A chime sounded, and a glowing timer appeared beneath the first hologram. The clock began counting down from a 30, the numbers blurring as the puzzle continued to morph dizzyingly. Timothy stared at the projection, his mind racing. The shapes made no sense, the logic behind their configuration utterly alien to him. Precious seconds slipped away as he struggled to impose order on the chaos. He was still grasping desperately for a solution when the timer hit 0, and a searing bolt of agony ripped through him. Every nerve in his body seemed to ignite, his muscles seizing until he thought his bones would snap. Distantly, through the haze of pain, he heard a piercing scream echo his own, his first victim in the audience. As the spasms subsided, Timothy hung limp in his bonds, gasping and shaking. Sweat poured down his face, mingling with involuntary tears. The second puzzle appeared, even more incomprehensible than the first. Timothy's heart hammered, his mind still fogged with residual pain. He tried to force himself to focus, to find the pattern, but it slipped maddeningly away. Once again the timer reached 0, and once again the agony tore through him like a million white-hot needles shredding his nerves. He convulsed, unable even to scream, dimly aware of his own sizzling flesh. As the third puzzle coalesced before his blurred vision, Timothy felt a numb despair settle over him. He couldn't do this. It was impossible. He was going to die here, and he was going to take innocent Bajorans with him. And for what? The amusement of a bored and jaded galaxy? But as the timer started its inexorable countdown, he caught a faint shimmer in his peripheral vision. Athena. Forcing his head up, he saw her flickering form standing at the edge of the dais. She was gesturing subtly to different parts of the puzzle, guiding his eyes. With a sudden jolt of clarity, he understood. She was showing him the solution, tracing the path through the tangled knot of shapes and light. His hands trembling with exhaustion and pain, Timothy input the sequence. The hologram flashed green, a correct answer. The audience gasped in shock, then erupted into excited chatter. Quasar's voice rose angrily over the hubbub, demanding order. As the fourth and fifth puzzles appeared, Athena continued to covertly guide him through, always staying just at the edge of visibility. Timothy's fingers flew over the control panel, confidence growing with each green flash of success. The crowd was becoming more vocal now, their surprise turning to enthusiasm. Sporadic cheers broke out each time Timothy solved a puzzle in the nick of time. It seemed the Bajorans were growing to appreciate the underdog human. Quasar, on the other hand, was clearly infuriated by Timothy's sudden streak of success. As the sixth puzzle dissolved in a blur of green, the alien's voice snarled over the speakers. "Getting a little too comfortable, are we, human? Let's see how you handle this." The final hologram burst into existence, orders of magnitude more complex than any that had come before. Timothy felt his heart sink. Even with Athena's help, he couldn't possibly untangle this monstrosity in 30 seconds. "Oh, and I should probably mention," Quasar added with vicious satisfaction, "this last shock will be lethal, not just for you, but for whichever unfortunate soul in the audience shares your failure. No second chances." But then, Athena's fingers began to fly over her wrist computer with blinding speed, her face set with intense concentration as she worked feverishly to hack the system, rewrite the parameters of the puzzle. Timothy watched the timer count down with mounting terror, praying that whatever his ally was attempting would be enough. 15 seconds. 10. 5. At the very last instant, the hologram flickered and reformed into something far simpler. 3 basic shapes in a repeating pattern. Circle, square, triangle. Athena signaled the sequence frantically. Timothy input the commands just as the timer hit 0 to 1. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then, with a cheerful beep, the hologram flashed green. Quasar's howl of rage was drowned out by the sudden roar of the crowd. The Bajorans were on their feet, stamping and cheering, their bloodlust forgotten in the thrill of the unexpected triumph. The human had done the impossible, and spared one of their own in the process. As the guards dragged him off the dais, Timothy caught a final glimpse of Athena's satisfied smile, before she faded back into invisibility. But his elation was short-lived. Quasar's voice cut through the celebratory din, cold and vengeful. "Enjoy your adulation while you can, human. Savor the taste of your tiny victory, because your final challenge will be your last. You'll be facing me one-on-one in a battle to the death, and I assure you—" The alien's words dripped with menace. "First, I will not be so easily outmatched." As the portal sealed behind him, leaving him in shadowed silence, Timothy felt a heavy weight settle on his aching shoulders. He had survived against all odds, beaten Quasar's rigged game. But he knew, with grim certainty, that the worst was yet to come. His most desperate fight still lay ahead. Athena appeared beside him, as if summoned by his dark thoughts. Her face was set with determination, but Timothy could see the cracks of strain and worry beneath her hardened exterior. "That was too close," she murmured. "Quasar won't underestimate you again, and a straight-up physical fight." Timothy let out a shaky breath. "I trust you," he said simply. "Whatever you've got planned, I'm in. Just promise me one thing." He met her eyes, his gaze flinty. "When this is over, when we're back on Earth, I want to be there when we blow the lid off this whole sick charade. I want to see the look on their smug alien faces when they realize just what humanity is capable of. Oh, trust me, she said. When we bring the might of Earth to bear, they'll never underestimate our species again. With that promise burning between them, they began to plan, to scheme, to lay the groundwork for Timothy's most desperate gambit yet, and humanity's first strike back against a galaxy that had seen them as lesser for far too long. The final challenge loomed, a crucible that would either forge a new future or end in the ultimate defeat. In the cramped confines of his cell, Timothy slumped against the wall, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Every inch of his body throbbed with pain, a constellation of bruises and lacerations courtesy of Quasar's cruel games. He gingerly probed a particularly nasty gash above his eye, wincing as his fingers came away sticky with half-clotted blood. A faint shimmer in the air announced Athena's arrival. She materialized beside him, her face etched with concern. "You look like hell, kid." Timothy barked a humorless laugh. "Feel like it too. Don't suppose your magic suit has any painkillers built in." She tapped a sequence on her wrist computer, and a holographic schematic of the arena flickered to life. "I've been analyzing the systems that control the battleground. With a little creative hacking, I should be able to give you a few advantages. Manipulate the terrain, short out some of Quasar's fancier cyber implants." The schematic zoomed in on a humanoid figure, which shimmered and vanished from view. "I can even cloak you with temporary invisibility, if things get truly dire." Timothy studied the readout, hope warring with trepidation in his gut. "I'm grateful, Athena, truly, but I'm a soldier, not some kind of arena champion. Quasar was literally built for this. What chance do I really have?" Athena gripped his shoulder, her gaze intense. "You've held your own against everything they've thrown at you so far. That takes more than just training. That's pure grit. You're a survivor, Timothy. And you're not just fighting for yourself. You're fighting for the 7 billion souls back home who are counting on you." She paused, a ghost of a smile playing across her lips. "Besides, let's just say I arranged for a little extra help. A gift from Earth, you could say. Call it a good luck charm." Before Timothy could press her on what she meant, the cell door slammed open. 2 hulking guards stormed in, manacles at the ready. Athena was already gone, vanished like a wisp of smoke. As the guards dragged him through the twisting corridors toward the arena, Timothy heard Athena's voice in his ear, barely a whisper. "I'm with you, soldier boy. Every step. Now let's show that alien freak what happens when you mess with the wrong species." The roar of the crowd hit Timothy like a physical blow as he emerged into the arena. The air shimmered with the heat of 1,000 alien suns, reeking of ozone and blood. Towering rock formations cast jagged shadows across the pitted ground, interspersed with gurgling pools of luminescent acid. Strange, twisted foliage clung to the rocks, pulsing with bioluminescent menace. And there, at the far end of the arena, stood Quasar. The alien's chitinous exoskeleton gleamed with polished malice, bristling with cruel cybernetic augmentations. In each clawed fist, it clutched a wicked-looking blade wreathed in crackling energy. Its eyes blazed with sadistic hunger as it drank in the sight of its battered human prey. The crowd's chanting rose to a fever pitch as hidden cameras zoomed in on the 2 combatants. Last-minute bets were placed in a frenzy of shouting and jostling. Quasar lunged, covering the distance between them in a blur of speed that belied its bulk. The energized blade sliced through the air, humming with barely restrained power. Instinct took over, and Timothy hurled himself aside, hitting the ground in a bruising roll. He felt the searing heat of the blades as they passed a hair's breadth from his skin, near enough to raise blisters. The stench of singed hair filled his nostrils. He scrambled to his feet, just in time to see Quasar bearing down on him again. The alien was relentless, a whirlwind of slashing, humming death. It took every ounce of Timothy's hard-won combat skills just to stay ahead of those brutal, sweeping strikes. He ducked and wove and parried with nothing but the flesh of his forearms, and even so he felt the sting of a dozen cuts leaking blood. Quasar forced him back, step by grueling step, driving him toward a sputtering pool of acid. Just as Timothy's foot slipped on the crumbling ledge, and it seemed certain he would tumble into the bubbling ooze, a small canister plummeted from the sky and clattered to the ground at his feet. Acting on pure adrenaline-fueled instinct, he snatched it up and crushed it in his fist. A cloud of shimmering golden mist erupted from the ruptured canister, enveloping Timothy in a glittering haze. He felt a sudden weight settle over his body, form-fitting and cool against his skin. As the mist dissipated, he found himself clad head to toe in a gleaming suit of armor, as resplendent and regal as a king's raiment. A heads-up display flickered to life before his eyes, analyzing and dissecting Quasar's movements with clinical precision. Vulnerable joints and potential weak points in the alien cybernetics pulsed with targeting reticules. Athena's voice sounded in his ear, shot through with fierce, triumphant pride. "How's that for a good luck charm, soldier boy? Time to show this alien filth what a human can really do." Timothy surged forward, his armor-clad fists pummeling Quasar's exoskeleton with superhuman force. Sparks flew as the alien's energy blades skittered off the suit's impenetrable gauntlets. Timothy pressed his advantage, raining blows on Quasar's cybernetics. In the stands, the audience gaped in disbelief as the human turned the tables on his tormentor. Bookies frantically adjusted odds as credit chips changed hands in a frenzy of betting. Quasar reeled under Timothy's relentless assault, its implants sparking and smoking. A jet of corrosive acid spewed from a sabotaged wall vent, splashing across the alien's face. It howled in agony, ichor sizzling. Timothy hammered at the malfunctioning cybernetics, servos whining as he pushed the suit to its limits. Quasar staggered, its movements turning jerky and uncoordinated. Suddenly, a hatch slid open in Quasar's chest, revealing a pulsing sonic cannon. The air rippled as a concentrated blast of sound slammed into Timothy, hurling him across the arena. He smashed into a jagged rock formation and crumpled to the ground, the suit's systems screaming warnings. Quasar loomed over him, blades raised for the killing blow, but Athena shimmered into view behind it, jamming her plasma pistol against the base of its skull. She fired, the bolt frying Quasar's neural wiring. It spasmed and collapsed, smoke pouring from its ruined implants. Athena pulled Timothy to his feet as the arena plunged into darkness, emergency lights painting everything crimson. Alarms blared, ordering an immediate evacuation. In the chaos, Athena cloaked them both, and they plunged into the panicking crowd. "This way," Athena said, guiding Timothy into a service tunnel. "I triggered a security breach to cover our escape. My ship is at the end of this passage." They emerged onto a wind-whipped landing pad, Athena's cloaked ship a hazy shimmer ahead. A plasma bolt sizzled past Timothy's ear. He spun to see Quasar, battered but still functional, leveling its own rifle. A squad of guards fanned out behind it, weapons trained on the humans. Athena's fingers flew over her suit's controls, energy shields springing to life just in time to absorb a blistering hail of plasma bolts. The air sizzled with ozone as she returned fire, a searing lance of energy scything across the landing platform. The Bajoran guards scattered, diving for cover behind supply crates and refueling pylons. Quasar, however, barely seemed to notice the barrage, its mangled frame lurching forward with single-minded purpose, sparking blades carving the air. Athena charged to meet it head-on, a blur of black and crackling golden light. They clashed in a storm of sparks, superheated metal screeching against indestructible alloy, moving faster than the eye could follow. Quasar's blades slashed and thrust with relentless fury, a whirlwind of humming plasma. But Athena matched the alien monstrosity blow for blow, her suit's reflexes boosted to preternatural speed. She parried a decapitating slash, sidestepped a gutting thrust, always a hair's breadth ahead of the deadly onslaught. Meanwhile, Timothy pounded up the ramp of Athena's ship, heart jackhammering against his ribs. He skidded into the cockpit and slammed his palm against the ignition panel. "Unauthorized user," the ship's AI intoned, maddeningly calm. "Please provide valid authorization code." "I don't have the damn code," Timothy roared, punctuating each word with a frantic blow to the unresponsive panel. Beyond the view screen, he could see Athena, locked in her desperate duel, Quasar's blades a threshing machine of destruction. She couldn't hold out forever, but the AI remained unmoved by his pleas and curses, an implacable digital sentinel. Pulse pounding in his ears, Timothy cast about the cockpit, racking his brain for a solution. His gaze fell on a rack of weapons lockers set into the bulkhead, and the proverbial light bulb ignited in his mind. He flung open the nearest locker, revealing an arsenal of sleek, deadly devices. His hands closed around the grip of a vicious-looking plasma rifle, feeling the hum of barely restrained power. Snatching a bandolier of grenades, he charged back down the ramp, a plan crystallizing with each pounding step. The guards had regrouped, advancing on Athena's position in a staggered line, plasma rifles unleashing a blistering fusillade. Timothy dropped to one knee, bringing the alien weapon to his shoulder with a motion that was pure muscle memory. He sighted down the barrel, thumbed the selector to full auto, and squeezed the trigger. A strobing hail of plasma bolts scythed through the guards' formation, superheated gas vaporizing alien flesh and bone. They crumpled like marionettes with cut strings, cauterized holes punched clean through skulls and torsos. The staccato cracks of the plasma rifle drowned out their gurgling screams. Quasar reeled as Timothy's fire raked across its back, momentarily distracted from its single-minded assault. Athena seized the opening, blurring forward and slamming her blade up to the hilt in the monster's chest, piercing its pulsing power core. The alien construct staggered back, shock and disbelief contorting its mangled features. It tried to snarl some final defiance, but all that emerged was a staticky screech. Arcs of electricity coursed over its frame, building to a blinding crescendo. Athena hurled herself clear a millisecond before Quasar's core went critical, the detonation hurling her backwards like a rag doll. She crashed to the platform in a clatter of alloy, rolling to a jarring stop. Timothy was at her side in an instant, dragging her upright and slinging her arm over his shoulders. Together they staggered up the ramp, the ship's hull shuddering as plasma bolts pinged off the armored plating. The hatch sealed behind them with a hiss of hydraulics, muffling the chaos outside. Athena collapsed into the pilot's chair, hands dancing over the controls with desperate speed. The ship shivered as the engines roared to life, anti-grav generators straining against the pull of the planet's gravity well. With a final shuddering lurch, the ship broke free, screaming up through the atmosphere and into the star-flecked void. Only then did Athena slump back in her seat, a trickle of blood oozing from beneath her scorched and dented helmet. "Not bad for a day's work, soldier boy," she rasped, favoring him with a pained grin. "But we're not out of the woods yet. That little stunt is going to have consequences." Timothy opened his mouth to ask what she meant, but Athena silenced him with a raised hand, eyes fixed on the sensor readouts crawling across her HUD. "Multiple drive signatures detected," she said, her voice suddenly taut. "Looks like a pursuit wing Wraith-class raiders, fast, agile, and packing enough firepower to slag a small moon." Her fingers flew over the controls with renewed urgency, plotting evasive vectors and priming the ship's point defenses. "Strap in, kid. This ride's about to get a whole lot bumpier." The weight of Timothy's newfound responsibilities settled heavily on his shoulders as he strode through the gleaming corridors of the EDI's orbital command center. The scars from his brutal ordeal at the hands of Quasar and the Bajorans still ached, a constant reminder of the horrors he had endured and the greater horrors that were yet to come. As he entered the bustling command deck, the grim faces of his fellow operatives told him all he needed to know. The situation was dire. "They've declared war," Athena said without preamble, her eyes hard as flint. "The Bajorans have rallied the other major powers. They're painting us as a threat to the entire galaxy." Timothy clenched his fists, fury and dread warring in his gut. "So what's our play?" "We fight," Captain Hawkins said, his voice like steel. "We use every trick, every piece of tech, every ounce of human grit and ingenuity, and we pray it's enough." The first strikes came like lightning, massive alien fleets dropping out of hyperspace to unleash devastating bombardments on Earth's far-flung colonies. The EDI fought back with everything they had, their advanced stealth ships and powerful new weapons taking a heavy toll on the invaders. For a time it seemed they might just hold the line. Timothy and Athena were in the thick of it, piloting sleek fighters through storms of plasma fire, leading daring boarding actions onto alien capital ships. They made the enemy bleed for every inch. But the sheer numbers of the alien host seemed inexhaustible. For every ship they destroyed, a dozen more took its place. One by one, humanity's outer bastions fell, then their inner sanctums. They came in their thousands, a vast armada that blotted out the sun. The remnants of Earth's defenders, a ragged band of bloodied heroes, gathered in orbit for the final stand. The battle was joined, and the heavens burned. Railgun rounds and fusion beams crisscrossed with searing lances of exotic energy. Fighters danced and dueled in intricate ballets of destruction. Shattered hulks of ships, both human and alien, tumbled slowly against the backdrop of the blue-green jewel of Earth. But for all their valor, for all their sacrifice, it wasn't enough. The alien tide broke through, their dropships descending like locusts upon the planet's surface. Cities became ash and rubble. Millions perished in the blink of an eye. And still the enemy came. In those final desperate hours, the EDI leadership enacted the ultimate contingency, Protocol Ragnarok. Every remaining human ship, station, and colony was rigged to blow, to deny the aliens their prize through the cleansing fire of antimatter. Timothy and Athena, battered and bloody, watched from the bridge of the Titan as the detonations lit up the void. The Earth, cradle of humanity, vanished in a blinding flash, taking the bulk of the alien armada with it. The Titan, its hull groaning and buckling, barely managed to limp clear of the blast. The last embers of humanity huddled within its battered frame. As they drifted in the silent void, numb with grief and loss, Timothy turned to Athena. "What now?" he croaked, his voice raw. "What do we do now?" The Titan set a course for the unknown, the last torch of human civilization, in a galaxy forever changed by their meteoric rise and fall. The aliens had learned too late the depths of human resolve, the price of kicking the hornet's nest. Humanity would endure, bloodied but unbroken, ready for whatever challenges the